super good.
Alright, what's up? Welcome to Disco Acid Cult TV. This is my first upload. I'm doing it pre-recorded. I'm still not going to do any fancy edits. I usually do live streams. I just wanted to record it so chat doesn't get in the way. So I'm going to do this as if it's a live stream, but there will be no chat interrupting. I want to talk about Terrifier 3. I just got out of the theater, like 20-30 minutes ago. I didn't bring a notebook. I didn't take any notes, so I am cheating a little bit. I have my handy-dandy Wikipedia plot pulled up right here just in case I already forget some things. What a fucking hectic movie. I mean, I guess that's what you go to see these things for. To lay it all out there, 100% spoilers. We're doing spoilers all the way. Complete spoilers. Obviously, that'll be in the title. Also, to get this out of the way, my deal with Terrifier and Art the Clown is kind of weird. I don't like Art the Clown. I'll be honest right up front. I'm not a big fan of clown villains in horror. Aside from Captain Spaulding. Anyone that knows me knows that I'm a big Rob Zombie fan. I do love the Fireflies. And I love Captain Spaulding, but I don't see Captain Spaulding as a clown necessarily. To me, he's more of a guy who, I don't know how to explain it. I think of him more as a guy who wears clown makeup for work sometimes. He's not tied to the clown persona, if that makes sense. It probably sounds stupid. It probably is stupid. Like I said, I don't know how to explain it. He's the one clown that I really like. I don't like killer clowns from outer space. I don't like Pennywise. It's just not my thing. Art the Clown, not my favorite character. I don't hate him, though. Let me say, after this movie, I don't hate him. I liked Terrifier 1. Terrifier 1 was right up my alley. I like those grindhousey, low budget, single location settings, right? Those kind of comfy movies where you're in the same place for most of the movie. Very simple, killer attacking two girls in an abandoned building, right up my alley. I thought it was a pretty cool movie. I liked the look of it. 2, I really didn't like 2 all that much. I understand why people do, don't get me wrong. The jump from 1 to 2 was just so drastic for me. Like I said, the way it goes from a clown attacking 2 girls in an abandoned building to this whole story of a hero who's an angel who goes to hell and comes back, and it just got way too fantastical, way too fast for me. I think that's probably it. I guess it makes sense. The budget that he got for 2 was, incredible compared to 1, and the popularity. So I guess he kind of had no, I don't know. I don't want to say he had no choice but to go fantastical. Damien Leone. Is it Leone or Leone? I say Leone. I like it that way. It sounds cool. In a way, I'm sure Damien Leone, when he made 2, thought, well, I've got to go big. I've got to go really big. People have been talking about Art the Clown as the next iconic slasher villain. I happen to not agree. I think it's more a case of we've been lacking in the slasher villain department really since the 80s. Well, that's not true. We have Ghostface. But overall, as far as iconic slasher faces, we've been lacking in that department, and I think Art the Clown came out and people kind of latched on to him. But no disrespect to anyone that likes Art the Clown. Like I said, it's all good. I think I get it. I think I get it. It's just not right up my alley. That being said, I kind of liked 3. 3 was fine. I would give 3 it was all right. I liked it better than 2. My ranking so far is Terrifier 1, Terrifier 3, and then Terrifier 2. 3, first and foremost, I gotta say from a writer's standpoint, Damien Leone has done a really good job at tying together everything in this third one. The way that one of the victims from 1 kind of is now the main antagonist, damn near, of 3. He's done a really good job at tying everything together. The way he's been able to go from Again, I'll say it again, attacking two girls in an abandoned building, all the way up to now Art the Clown is possessed by a demon, and a demon host is something along those lines, is what it sounds like they're going with in 3. He's done very well at putting everything together. And he, of course, he did a really good job at leaving a lot of room open for 4. So I have to give him that. I have to give Damien Leone that. No matter what I think of the movies, no matter what I think of Art the Clown, the guy, he's honestly turned out to be a much better writer than I ever would have expected. I remember when I saw 2, and I was hating on 2, I kept thinking, this is what happens when you give a special effects guy his own franchise, essentially. And now I kind of take that back. The guy has shown his writing chops. He's been able to tie together all these storylines and ideas from the first 2 movies pretty well in part 3. So part 3 starts off with, I guess I'll start off reading it here, and then I'll intercut my own little opinions. The film opens up with a family being killed by Art the Clown in their house shortly before Christmas. Right. Another thing I've got to give this movie, it's funny, I just talked about how I thought this movie was all right and it was fine, and now I'm kind of going to start praising things about it, and it's going to sound like I'm a huge fan. But there are things that I've got to appreciate about it, and one thing I will say is this movie really stressed me out in the way that I like horror movies to stress me out. My big thing that I always say is I'm an adult, so I don't find horror movies scary. They don't scare me in the way that things in real life scare me. I know that they're movies. I know they're not real. I'm not actually afraid. So the feelings that I look for when I watch a horror movie are feelings of stress, kind of a sense of panic, a sense of hopelessness. That's a big one. When you feel that things are hopeless, nothing's ever going to get better. And this movie did that really well. Right off the bat, dude. Dude, the first death of the movie was a kid. I mean, where do you go from there? That is one thing. Where do you go from here? Right? Damien Leone has no problem taking out kids in his movies. That is one thing. That is one thing we've learned for sure. That he has no problems taking out kids. It's kind of the teaser trailer that we all got. This was the first thing, at least that I saw of the movie, was Art breaking into the house dressed as Santa Claus, and the little girl, yeah, he kills the whole family dressed up as Santa Claus. The first person he kills is a little boy sleeping in his bed. We don't see it. We do see the aftermath, which was perfectly shocking enough. Kills the parents, and I think we can all assume he ended up killing the little girl after that whole scene ended. Let me see. 5 years earlier, Art's body makes its way to the asylum where survivors Victoria Hayes has just given birth to his head. Yeah, so Victoria Hayes, the victim from the first movie, she's now the host. We go on to later find out that she has probably been possessed by a demon, and she's also what's feeding Art his supernatural powers. So I liked that. I liked that he's now bringing back things from the first movie, because it seems like the first movie, of course, was going to be long forgotten had he not been tying these things in like that. And long forgotten is probably harsh, but Sienna has taken over this franchise, right? That's what I mostly mean by it. Now, Terrifier 2 has been the big deal, and so it's cool to see him bring back things from 1 to this degree. Like I said, Victoria Hayes is essentially, I would say, the main antagonist of this movie. From what it sounds like, I'm still not entirely sure about how all that demon stuff goes. Like I said, from what I understood, there's some demon. I would imagine in part 4 they'll get into what the demon is. Maybe I've got some predictions for part 4 that I'll get into. Yeah, survivor Victoria Hayes has just given birth to Art's head in the hospital. They murder a nurse and a guard before fleeing and entering an abandoned house. I love the Chris Jericho return. Big wrestling nerd here, so I was cool with seeing Chris Jericho. I didn't realize Chris Jericho was going to take quite the beating that he did, but he did a good job. He did pretty good. So back in the present day, and 5 years later, which is now the same time that the family just got murdered in their house around Christmas time. Sienna Shaw is released from a hospital to stay with her Aunt Jess, who lives with her husband Greg and their daughter Gabby, who idolizes Sienna but has no knowledge of the events. Sienna is still haunted by visions of her friends and struggles to reconnect with her brother Jonathan. So we see Sienna's obviously been in some kind of hospital. Of course, as you would expect someone to be. It sounds like it looks like she's had a harder time recovering than Jonathan. Jonathan is in college now, we learn. Sienna gets picked up by Uncle Greg, gets taken home. We meet Aunt Jess and Uncle Greg's daughter, Gabby, who is, she looks up to Sienna in kind of a sisterly way. There's a quote we get, "Sister from another mister." I thought that was pretty funny. And these are nice scenes. I like seeing these little heartwarming scenes of this family around Christmas time. Of course, we learn that Sienna's having post-traumatic stress issues. She's having hallucinations of her dead friends. She feels guilt, a lot of survivor's guilt. Art and Victoria are woken from their slumber when two workers stumble upon their bodies in the house. So I thought that part was actually pretty interesting. Art and Victoria, they break into an abandoned house and they sleep for the 5 years between the two events of this movie. Art sits in a rocking chair and Victoria cuts her wrists. And Victoria also, the entire time, looks like she looked at the end of the first Terrifier. She's got the eaten off face and everything. She cuts her wrists and bleeds out in a bathtub. And they just are in that state for 5 years. I thought that was actually kind of cool. So Art basically was hibernating, in a sense. Which makes more sense when you learn that these are two demons, or one demon controlling both of them. Whatever have you. It's a demon. So it's a demon. Maybe the demon needs rests. Maybe it goes into a long sleep. Something like that. I thought it was interesting, though, to have them just sit for 5 years. Like, this is what's been going on. They've just been sitting. The duo kills the workers after testing some new weapons on rats. That part was kind of funny. Art's weapons, they get a little too inventive for me, I won't lie. He's got this like canister that he sprays out. I can't think of the name of it. It sprays out this substance that like cryogenically freezes things. I don't know if it's like hydrogen, if that's what you call it. It's the same thing that you see in the Friday the 13th movie. I think it's Jason X, where he goes to space and he freezes the girl's face and then smashes her face down. He's got that like in a fire extinguisher, which I don't really know how you would do. I would think you'd have to pull off some crazy fucking chemistry to make that happen. But I guess if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Art the Clown. So we see him testing out some weapons on rats in the building. He sprays the substance on a rat and it freezes the rat, and then he smashes the rat. They kill these two workers. The two workers are here to demolish or start demolishing work on this abandoned house, and then of course they stumble upon the hibernating bodies of Art and Victoria. And once they kill the two workers, they take off to do their thing. Art encounters a Santa Claus impersonator at a bar and murders him and the other patrons of the bar. I loved this part just because of Daniel Roebuck. As I mentioned, big Rob Zombie fan, so I was happy to see Daniel Roebuck in this movie. I thought he did a really good job for the small scene that he had. Art's funny. I know everybody knows that, but the way he's like fascinated by Santa Claus, does he know what Santa Claus is, or does he just see pictures of Santa Claus on the walls of places, and does he understand that this is like I don't want to say a celebrity, but does he understand that Santa Claus is a beloved character among humans? You don't really know. He's just very excited to see a man in a Santa Claus costume, and he wants this costume. So it's funny. It's pretty funny. This is where we see Art use his like cryogenic freezing substance. He sprays Daniel Roebuck multiple body parts and then breaks them off with a hammer. And then he takes a Santa Claus outfit, as we see in all the advertisements. He's dressed up as Santa for most of the movie. Art impersonates him at a mall and uses. This part was fucking wild. Art shows up to the mall dressed up as Santa Claus, and he basically hijacks the mall has a mall Santa where kids are lining up and sitting on his lap and taking pictures, and he hijacks the Santa's seat, and one of the presents that he gives to one of the kids is a bomb. Before security finds Santa Claus, Art the Clown, and kicks him out. And as he's kicking him out, the bomb goes off. Dude, a whole bunch of kids die. A whole bunch of kids and parents get blown up in this fucking mall. It's wild. If there is one thing that I would say takes Damien Leone to the next level, it's how many kids he took out in this fucking movie. That sounds terrible, but not a lot of people have the guts to take out that many kids. Young children, too. I know movies have been taking out teenagers forever, but young children who are excited to meet Santa Claus and die. It's honestly pretty insane. One of my big complaints is how Art the Clown gets around so easily. Nobody sees this guy. Right, nobody sees. I mean, this guy's covered in. First of all, this guy's covered in blood half the time. Second of all, there have been reports of the Mills County Clown going on for 5 years, and nobody sees this guy. Like, that part is a little bizarre to me. That will always be one of my complaints. I know you're supposed to suspend your disbelief, especially in a movie like Terrifier, which I can do. Like I said, I enjoyed the movie. I can do. But if I have to think of some complaints, it's the way that Art just gets around so easily, and nobody spots him. There's no police looking for him. There's not wanted posters all over the city with this guy's face. I mean, a bunch of people have seen him. I totally left out. While Art is doing this at the mall, Sienna is also at the mall, and she's at the mall with Gabby. What is it when your aunt and uncle have a kid? Is that your cousin? I think that's your little cousin. Yeah. I feel stupid now. My aunt's kids are my cousins. Yeah, so Sienna and her younger cousin Gabby are at the mall doing some Christmas shopping. And Sienna sees Art the Clown. He's got a Santa mask over his face. So she doesn't actually see him, but she's like very sure that it's him. And she kind of has a moment. She has these kind of paranoia-induced moments throughout the movie. Again, I'm skipping scenes. I'm telling you guys, I just got out of the theater with this, and Wikipedia plots are not that detailed. Earlier in the movie, we got a little dinner scene with the family. Sienna's aunt and uncle, and Gabby and Sienna. And that's when we see that Sienna has hallucinations, and she sees things, and she's obviously medicated for all of this. But so she sees Art the Clown in the mall, and she kind of chalks it up as another one of her hallucinations. Or at least she pretends to, for the sake of her cousin Gabby being in the same room with her. So, Sienna and Gabby, I think they had left the mall by the time the explosion goes off in the mall. So they're not there for it. But, yeah, fucking A. Art kills a lot of fucking kids in this movie. It was bound to happen. This guy is, like one of the most evil dudes we've seen in a slasher movie in a long time. It's nothing personal with this guy. That is one thing I'll say I like about him. It is nothing personal with this guy. This is just what he does. So after all this, Sienna visits Jonathan. So yeah, Jonathan's in college. Jonathan is trying his best to move on, and he seems to be doing a little bit better than Sienna. He's at least doing better at faking it. She's been in and out of the hospital for 5 years, and he's just in college. We learned earlier that he has a roommate, and the roommate has this girlfriend who has a true crime podcast, and she is obsessed with him, and she wants to bring him on the podcast. And I think it's funny when horror movies do the true crime podcaster now thing. I kind of like that. We saw it in Halloween 2018. It seems to be a trend that's going to continue. I think it's funny. It's always funny when you're watching a movie and the word podcast gets used and you're like, oh, here's this character. I think it's funny. So when Sienna's visiting Jonathan at his college, they're sitting down and they're eating. And Jonathan's roommate, I guess his name is Cole. I didn't even catch that. Cole's girlfriend, Mia, her name is Mia, who hosts the podcast. She approaches and she tries to talk to Sienna and convince her to come on her podcast. And obviously Sienna doesn't, she refuses, and she kind of has a little bit of a freak out, and she yells at Mia, and Sienna ends up telling Jonathan that she thinks she saw Art at the mall. And that's when Sienna brings up all of this kind of what plot. Like this is what Art is. She brings up that over the last 5 years, Jonathan got very into demonology, and this is where he learned that demons can be reborn through a host, which they think the host is Victoria, and there are angels that oppose these demons, which the angel would be Sienna. So is Victoria the host, or is Art the host? I think Victoria is the host. But didn't Art kill Victoria? See, this is where I get a little confused at this part. I'm sure 4 will flesh this stuff out a little bit more. Or I'm just stupid. If I'm missing something and you're watching this, please tell me. Tell me in some comments. You can be rude. You can call me names. I don't care. Just let me know what's going on with this whole demon thing. The way I saw it was that Victoria is the demon who is continuously bringing Art back to life. That's kind of what I got out of it. But then I also got that Art in the first movie was just a human, right? He was just a normal human serial killer, and then the demon brought him back to life. But if the demon is Victoria, you see what I'm saying? Like, I guess it's like a chicken or the egg. Which one came first? Was it Victoria or was it Art? Which one was the demon first? So Sienna tells Jonathan that she's going to go back to the Terrifier from the second movie to retrieve her father's sword. The sword comes back. We get a lot more. We actually meet Sienna and Jonathan's father a couple times in this movie. Sienna has flashbacks to when she was a kid and her dad was drawing those fantastical superheroes and characters. And so apparently the sword, which was her father's, was the only sword that can defeat either this demon or just demons in general. I think Art the Clown is their dad. I think that's where this is all going to go. Maybe not in 4. Maybe we'll get it in 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think Art the Clown is their dad. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen. Their dad died, and maybe he possessed Art the Clown. Something like that. Something like that has to happen. Because this movie did a really good job at giving us more little bits about their father, but really not all that much. So I'm thinking we're going toward the dad is going to be Art the Clown. I'm sure a lot of people think that too, but I'm sticking with that. I'm sticking strong with that. Sienna returns home with a gift in hand and places it behind the tree, which Gabby notices. And we learned earlier that Gabby's kind of a snoop. She likes to look around the house for presents that her parents hide around Christmas time. So we can all assume that she looks at this present, and the present. I don't think we learn this until later. I think it's obvious. The present is the sword. Sienna brings the sword home. I don't know if she was going to actually give the present to Gabby, or if she just brought it and disguised it as a present because she thought Art was coming back and she was going to use it later. I think that's probably what was going on. But we know it's the sword because Sienna told Jonathan she was going to get the sword. And when she got back home, Gabby notices that her hands are covered in dirt, like she's been digging something. So we see Art the Clown arrives at Jonathan's college campus, and Jesus Christ, he kills Cole and Mia with a chainsaw while they're having sex in the shower. Dude, if there's a big bummer in this movie, it's that we don't get to see this girl Mia's tits. To be completely honest with you, I really wanted to see Mia's tits. That is the biggest thing I wanted to see in this movie. We got really close, but we didn't get to. But to Damien Leone's credit, tits are not really a Terrifier thing, so it's kind of commendable that he didn't sell out. He had a really good opportunity to show us some tits in this fucking movie, and he didn't. It seems like that's not his bag. He's not going for that. Dude, we saw Cole's chainsaw dick and balls, and we didn't see tits. So again, you got to commend Damien Leone. He knows what he's sticking with what he's doing. He knows his characters. He knows his movies. Terrifier are not the movies you want to see if you want to see tits. Now that I say that, we do get some tits in the first Terrifier, but they're upside down and then cut in half, and it's really not all that great, so I don't think those really count. The shower scene was, I think, the next big, like Terrifier 2 had the big kill with the salt and the bleach. I think this was meant to be that big kill. This is Art with a chainsaw. Art runs a chainsaw up this guy's ass. He cuts this guy's hand off, cuts one of his legs off. He kills Mia in the shower with the chainsaw after taunting her a little bit. To rewind a little bit again, sorry I'm all over the place with this. Art overheard a conversation Cole was having with Mia where Mia was saying why she wants to have Sienna and Jonathan on her podcast, and she was kind of getting weird about, oh, I can't believe they actually saw Art the Clown. I want to know what it's like to get that close to somebody who's evil and experience that and feel that. And so Art overheard this. And so he makes sure to get really close to Mia and, he looks in her eyes and lets her experience this moment before he kills her. And then as Cole is trying to crawl away, Art comes over and he runs the chainsaw up this guy's ass. We see a running chainsaw go up a guy's ass in this movie. I don't know what he's going to do for part 4. What is Damien Leone going to do in part 4? What else is there? You've put a chainsaw up a guy's ass. Where do we go from here? So the family learns about the bombing at the mall on the TV. And when Sienna hears about this, she clearly puts it together that it was Art the Clown that she saw at the mall. So she freaks out and she tells the family, you guys have to go get Jonathan. Art's going to come back for us. And so Uncle Greg, he gets in the car and he starts driving to see Jonathan. Sienna's aunt gives her some medication. She falls asleep and she has these crazy fucking dreams about the angels and the costume and all the dad stuff and a lot of stuff from the second movie. We see a little scene where Uncle Greg has arrived at Jonathan's college to pick him up, and you can hear over the phone that it's not Jonathan on the phone. It's a callback to the second movie when the little girl that Art was palling around with did that really good impression of Jonathan on the phone. Actually, I didn't even think about that. Where is that little girl from this movie? I thought she survived 2. I wonder if she's going to come back for 4. Did I miss something? Again, I'm super sloppy after having just gotten out of the theater, but I don't remember seeing anything about that little clown girl from the second movie. But it's pretty obvious that it's not Jonathan. We can either assume that Art the Clown and Victoria either have Jonathan or have killed Jonathan, which we will get to. That was probably the most surprising thing to me. We will get to it. So then we cut back to Sienna waking up, and she starts hearing, or she thinks she hears her aunt and uncle talking in the kitchen about how Sienna needs to go back to the hospital because she's clearly crazy, which we've gotten a couple signs from Uncle Greg that he kind of is cautious about having her in the house. Throughout the movie, we see him talk to Sienna's aunt about how, they need to be careful because she could be sick still. She could be, very, I don't want to say delusional, but she could still be suffering from a lot of this PTSD, and it could have some effects on their young daughter, Gabby. So this is kind of a running theme through the movie, that they don't entirely believe her when she says things. So after Sienna wakes up, she hears these voices. She thinks it's her aunt and uncle arguing about her. She walks into the kitchen, and she sees that Art has killed Uncle Greg. I think at this point we see Uncle Greg is hung up on a wall with his head cut off, and he's all cut up and exactly what you'd expect. So Art and Victoria are in the house. This is the big showdown of this movie. Art starts banging on Sienna with a mallet. I feel like we've seen him use the mallet more often than any other weapon in these movies. I could be wrong, but we've seen the mallet before. Regaining consciousness, she sees Greg's. Okay, yeah. She wakes up and she sees. This is where we see Uncle Greg's body is pinned to the wall. Her aunt Jess is tied up. They're both tied up to chairs and they're sitting across from each other. And there's a little table in the middle of them, and this table has something that's like covered up on top of it. So Victoria shows the pair a head being consumed by rats and reveals that it's Gabby's head. So Victoria has now told Aunt Jess and Sienna that they've killed young cousin Gabby and that they have her head in a cage and it's being gnawed on by rats. Art and Victoria murder... This one's pretty crazy. They murder Aunt Jess. They take a tube and they hammer a tube down her throat. And they take the rats from the cage and they put the rats down the tube, and Art has a blowtorch to kind of burn the end of it so the rats run down her throat. That one was that was pretty wild. They cut her throat and the rats come crawling out of her throat. After this happens, Art comes out, or Art leaves the room for a second and then comes back and reveals that it's not Gabby, because here's Art with living Gabby. And this is when we learn that the head in the cage is Jonathan's head. They killed off brother Jonathan. That, to me, was the biggest surprise of this movie. We lost Jonathan. Jonathan was in Terrifier 2. He dies in Terrifier 3. There's no more brother Jonathan. So, of course, Sienna's not too happy about this. She starts kind of freaking out in the chair. So now we have a situation where it's Art and Victoria. Sienna's tied up in a chair. And they've got little cousin Gabby. Let's see. Let me just finish the story before I get to some other little bits of complaints and praises and overall thoughts and predictions for part 4. Victoria allows Sienna to open one gift, which this is kind of, this is poor decision making on behalf of the villains for the sake of plot. They have to let Sienna live. So Gabby says something to Sienna about, you never got to open your present, and she's talking about the present behind the tree that Sienna put there that we know is the sword from part 2. And so Art and Victoria are like, oh yeah, for sure, let's let her open this present before we kill little cousin Gabby. Which, poor choice, but the villains have to make them once in a while. So, well, first of all, dude, Sienna's hands take a real beating in this movie. It's actually one of my complaints is how badly they fuck up her hands, and then she just starts using her hands again, kind of out of nowhere. So they hand Sienna the present, the wrapped up present. That's the sword, and it's revealed to us that, I said Sienna brought it to the house and said this is Gabby's present. But as we know, Gabby is notorious for finding her presents and then opening them and rewrapping them to hide from her parents that she looked at the present. So she knows it's the sword. So that's why she says this, because she wants to give Sienna a chance to get the sword. Earlier in the movie, we learned that Gabby was reading Sienna's diary, in which Sienna had written out all the events of part 2. So she knows about the sword. She knows that this is the only weapon that can defeat demons. So, that's why she wants Sienna to get the sword in her hands. But Art hands her the present, and then he starts bashing her hands with a mallet. And we see her hands, they're just completely fucked. There's no way a human being would be able to use their hands after this happened. And so she struggles to open the present, and then kind of just out of nowhere, she just grabs the sword, no problem, and starts going off on Art and Victoria. So that's, whatever, small complaint, but a complaint nonetheless. They should have just not beat up her hands that bad if they were going to have her using the sword. So she gets the sword, she cuts Art, I think she cuts his throat, kind of from a sitting position. She stabs Victoria. She cuts off Victoria's head. And Victoria begins to disintegrate into the ground. And as this is happening, Art starts Art pulls out the chainsaw again, and he attacks Sienna. And Sienna, gets the upper hand. She beats him up with the sword a little bit. And the disintegrating Victoria turns into a giant hole in the floor that's a portal to hell, right? So we're getting, again, real fantastical here. Gabby falls into the hole to hell, and she's kind of hanging on by the edge. And Sienna tries to save her and pull her out of the hole, but all she has to use for help is the sword itself. So she holds the sword by the blade and tries to hand Gabby the handle of the sword. And the sword cuts through her hand, and Gabby falls into hell. And after she gets up, she notices that there's an open window, and Art has escaped through the window. So that's how this ends. Art escapes. Little Gabby goes to hell. The rest of Sienna's family is dead. Dude, Sienna, if I were Sienna, I would just take myself out. I would be so done, right? Like, this guy, my dad is dead. This guy's killed my mom. This guy's killed all my friends. Now this guy's killed my aunt and my uncle. My little cousin is in hell now. My little cousin has fallen in a hole to hell. Like, Sienna has nothing. She has nothing to live for. It's crazy to put her through this much. And we're going to get part 4. I'm really curious. I have my predictions. And here's my biggest one. A part that I skipped in the movie is after the podcast girl asked Jonathan to appear on her podcast. There's a scene where Jonathan is sitting at a table and he's on his phone and he's watching an episode of her podcast. And in this episode, the girl has a guest on, and the guest is talking about how she believes that Sienna is actually the prime suspect in the murders of the second movie. So apparently that's a thing. That is a widely believed idea in this world, that Sienna is actually the one who killed all of her friends in part 2. Because they never found Art's body, which I thought they did find Art's body. A cop found his body, and then the body showed up to the hospital to get the head. I don't know if, nobody saw that. I know they killed Chris Jericho, who was in the hospital. I don't know. I thought they did see the clown's body. I feel like enough people have seen the clown's body, so I don't know what this person was talking about. But this is a thing they talked about in this podcast episode in this movie, is that it's believed by some people that Sienna is actually the murderer. And she makes a comment about how she believes the only reason Sienna is free today is because Jonathan was there to testify on her behalf that it was actually a killer clown. Well, Jonathan's dead now. Sienna's aunt and uncle are dead, and her little cousin is gone. She's missing. In the real world, she's going to be seen missing. So the cops eventually are going to show up and find this empty, bloody massacre of a house with only Sienna in it. I think Sienna's going to go to prison. I think part 4, we'll see Sienna in prison. That's kind of my biggest take. We're going to see her in prison, and she's going to have to find a way to prove that she's innocent. A really small, simple, stupid complaint is that this whole final showdown takes place in a house, in a neighborhood, and it's just chaos. I'm talking supernatural chaos. There's Evil Dead style scenes where all the wind, you hear a big gust and all there's a big force and all the doors and curtains are blowing. People are screaming. A portal to hell opens up in the living room floor. No neighbors hear this. There are no neighbors that hear a portal to hell opening up in their neighbor's house. How does nobody hear this? But, again, I have these small, stupid complaints. They don't actually affect my enjoyment of the movie, usually. I have to bring them up because I'm here talking about this. But, yeah, overall, that's my biggest prediction. I think in part 4, Sienna's going to go to prison because she's going to have nobody to testify on her behalf. And, like I said, the authorities will show up eventually. I would presume some short time after this movie, cops will show up. And it's going to be this massacre scene, and Sienna is the only one who's alive. I'm also curious about the sword. The sword went down into hell with Gabby. I guess that could answer my question. Maybe Gabby's going to get the sword in hell, and she's going to fight her way back up to Earth. Because now that Jonathan's dead, the next movie, it's got to be Sienna and Gabby. Gabby's going to take the place of the younger brother, Jonathan. So I think that's what's going to end up happening. I don't know, and I could be wrong. Maybe Sienna won't go to prison, but I think she'll go to prison. Or at the least, we'll get a trial. There will be some kind of trial. We'll get a courtroom, a couple of courtroom scenes of Sienna trying to tell the world that, it's this demon clown, and yeah, I'm just confused. How does nobody... Okay, so sorry. right after the whole final showdown, we get a quick little funny scene of Art the Clown after he's escaped the house. He's sitting at a bus stop and he's waiting for the bus to come. And a bus, very late at night, with one passenger and the bus driver pulls up and they pick up Art the Clown, again covered in blood. How does this guy get around? Like, nobody calls the police. You know, nobody sees this guy. I know it's late at night, I guess. That's when he's traveling, and I think it's safe to assume he killed the bus driver and the passenger, but yeah, it's just that part will always blow my mind. How does nobody report this guy? Like, it's a true crime case. They know that there is something called the Mills County Clown, or the Mills County Killer Clown. So wouldn't somebody yeah, that part I don't get. But again, suspension of disbelief. It's fine. I can move on from it. But yeah, fucking A. Overall, man, I didn't hate it. I thought it was fine. I liked it. I would even say I liked it. I had a good time. Like I said, it invoked all those feelings that I wanted it to invoke. I'm looking through the Wikipedia right now. Again, I have to praise Damien Leone's writing is, I think, improved from the first movie till now. Honestly, I mean, you can't deny that. It's, you know, he's now got all kinds of storyline angles and arcs that are revolving around 3 films that he always wraps up very nicely. Right here on the Wikipedia page, we have a controversy section that says a Christian group outside a movie theater in Kansas City, Missouri, protested the film, calling it a satanic Santa film. That's always going to happen, right? Anytime you mix Christmas and horror, some Christian group will protest it. Then, yeah, we see here in 2023, Damien Leone spoke about his plans for a potential Terrifier 4, and in September, just last month, Leone confirmed that Terrifier 4 was in development. So that should be cool. I probably won't like it as much as 1. This is the thing. We're never going to go back to 1, right? Like I said, I like the simple, low-budget movies where not a lot's going on. We're never going to go back to that. The budget's only going to keep growing. Dude, this movie's going to make a shit ton of money. I think as of right now, what is today, the 11th? And at least on Wikipedia, it says the budget was $2 million and the box office is $2.6 million. So it's already surpassed its budget, and we're only a few days into it, you know. It's gonna make a lot of money. And he's going to go all out for 4, just like he's gone all out for the last 2, or the last 3. Yeah, you know, I like it. It was fine. I still don't like 2. I will always say that. I didn't really like 2. I didn't like the leap from 1 to 2. It didn't sit well with me. But the leap from 2 to 3, that's probably why I like 3 a little bit more, because now the leap from 2 to 3 is a lot easier to digest. It makes more sense to me. So, yeah, fucking A, that's it. That's Terrifier 3. Sorry for my very sloppy retelling of the story. Like I said, I took no notes. I didn't even plan on doing this. I just got home and thought, you know, fuck it, I'll throw this thing together. I'll put it up. I'll see if anybody comments on all this. Like I said, the demon stuff, dude, somebody please explain all that to me. Which one is actually the host? Which one is the demon? The demon thing I also do have to explain. I kind of liked that idea. I liked that we get, you know, we now have a solid explanation. For the last 2 movies, we've kind of been wondering, or well, no, we knew in Terrifier 2 that Art was supernatural. Terrifier 1 kind of left us wondering, you know, what's going on, and then 2 pretty much said, yeah, this guy's fucking supernatural. But now we have an actual solid answer. It's demons. We're dealing with demons. They straight up mentioned demonology. We're going to go the demon route. So maybe another prediction for 4 is that Sienna's going to start looking into demonology and religion. Maybe we'll get into some kind of, you know, I don't want to say Catholic angle or a Christian angle. Like, I'm not saying it's going to be a fucking Christian character or Christian whatever, but, you know, we'll get into some kind of good versus evil, God versus the devil type stuff, or at least angels versus demons type stuff. So that could be interesting. I would assume we won't get Terrifier 4. until, I would think 2026. It's going to be at least 2 years. But yeah, I can say I'm looking forward to 4, honestly. I'll go see it. We don't get a lot of good slashers nowadays. The slasher subgenre is my favorite horror subgenre. Big fan of the early 80s slashers. I really liked Eli Roth's Thanksgiving that we got. That was the most recent slasher I can point to that I really liked. Or let me specify the most new slasher. Of course, we always get our Halloween remakes and our sequels and our reboots and requels and all that. But whenever we get a new franchise, a new character, something that's completely brand new and creative, I'll go see it. I have to go see it. I got to spend money if I want this stuff to keep happening. So, of course, I went to see Terrifier 3. I am now looking on the top of the Wikipedia page. It's funny, they mentioned it's a Christmas supernatural slasher film, which I guess it is. It's a combination of all three of those things. But yeah, fucking A, man. That's Terrifier 3. Thanks for checking this shit out. Comment whatever the fuck you want, and I will see you motherfuckers around.